I am not my mind. My mind is not me. And that was very, very powerful because, the way we think and our beliefs, I mean, when people really think about when they start become conscious of what they believe to be true, and it's like they just start thinking like, where did I get that belief? Like, where's that even coming from? Is it really true? How do I know it's true? Because we really, gnosis with a G as opposed to gnosis, right? Like, we really don't know anything unless we have that direct experience.
Welcome to the Consciousness of the Way. I'm your humble servant and seafood, Taoist Master San Qing, and it's such a delight to welcome my dear friend to the podcast today, Amy Fournier. Is that correct? Did I get it
That's
right? Am I going to get it executed?
You get
And
the gold star.
and she is such an incredible contributor to the raising of humanity. So we can't limit ourselves with just her mastery of the flesh and blood and what you see before you, and furthermore deeper into the true nature of who you are on that spiritual path, because that's really what generates her and gets her all warm and fuzzy inside. I want to welcome you to the podcast, my dear friend.
My goodness, thank you so much. That's the most lovely introduction I've ever had. I think I'm blushing. But I will say it's funny you even mentioned that too, because just to jump right in here, you know, I had lost touch with who I really was for a while. And it's interesting to hear you parrot that back to me, that that's what you're picking up, because that was very, very much part of my journey in the last, I'd say maybe 6 to 8 years, Sam, that it was a journey back to myself. And I like to say that I'm a reformed people pleaser. And just always wanted, like so many of us, right? Just wanted to be a good person, do the right thing, be a good daughter, contribute and all that stuff. But I just lost touch with really my real self, my true self, rather than trying to please everybody else. My parents wanted me to be in society and all that stuff. And I lost my way, and it actually I mean, externally, was all the successes, right? Had the good job, had, doing really well and professionally and, on the home front, all that stuff. But I was just dying inside, and it led to massive burnout, which is very ironic because I've been into holistic health and fitness my whole life, at least my whole professional life. And so I was always about helping others be super healthy and fit. But I was practicing what I preach, on certain levels, with the diet and the exercise, but I wasn't doing the self-care. I wasn't on the other end because it was giving, giving, giving. And like so many of us do, and that want to contribute to the world, our hearts are big, we see the need, and we sacrifice ourselves. Plus, we're kind of taught half the time growing up, depending on your religion or your philosophy, it's more blessed to give than receive. So I had to relearn all that because I finally hit the wall. Again, it was about 6 to 8 years ago. I'm not too good on time. I'm kind of like you. I go into right brain, no time, right? Stack time. But I just couldn't do it anymore. My body was done, and I just got really, really down and just totally burnt and hit the wall. Dark night of the soul, the whole spiel. Went into the underworld. And since have clawed my way back up over the last 5 years, and happy to say for anyone listening or watching that can relate to what I'm saying, that you can come out of it. I'm on the other side of it. You will come out of it. Just do the work, put your head down, be brave, get the mentors, and you will come out of it. And I'm so happy to say that I've come out of it. I've come full circle back to who I really am, when I can stand on my feet. And then, as the Native Americans say, my feet, my heart, and my head are in alignment. I'm in one place, and it's a good place to be. But I didn't think I'd ever make it. So again, if you're listening or watching and you're like, nice for you, I get it. Hang in there. It's possible you can come out the other side.
It's so refreshing when you hear someone recognizing and remembering who they are, and it gives you pause, and it gives you hope to to achieve that for yourself and your own self-realization. And that path is always met with potential, yet when you're corrupted with the finite mind, the intellect, which makes it so palpable and material, you believe that the only evidence is what we refer to within Taoism, which is this yang state, which is a highly potent state. Yet when you just remain within the flesh and you don't realize that you are much more than just that identity that looks back at you in the mirror, that you will be met with this dissolution. And furthermore, that's where you discover how powerful you are. It's not just met with the tactile resistance from the flesh against the steel. And you and I understand the power of that potency when you put your attention, intention to something, and boom, you move that energy, you move that steel, you achieve a goal, you set one, and then you meet it. And that is the potency, that charge that you and I are getting from that commune, that oscillating effect that we're having right now. This is the evidence of that union. And that is beautiful. And I love that when we merge, and I think that you and I have this similar experience where you start from the baseline and from an energetic potential. We look at these things, and indigenous practices would refer to, chakras. We call them dantians within Taoism. These are energy potential that resides within you, and when activated, and it's always that ground level activation through the flesh where you become realized. That potency and the power that you possess is now, and it's evident through that. And, I think a lot of practices limit you by differentiating it mind, body, spirit, when ultimately it's all one. Yet you have to get to that point at your own self-realization that is the truth to you. It's not conceptual, transitory sort of delusion. You're able to validate it. I think the perfect way to do that is when you get familiar with your physicality, and the potency of that is a great entry level that activates those lower energy centers, instantly giving you the ability to start ascending and realizing who you are through that alchemical process. There's nothing more powerful when you go, hey, I feel a little down, I feel a little out of shape. I'm going to apply myself to this with what we call the method to the madness, a recipe. There's an exercise regime, there's a nutritional regime, there's a mental regime. When you meet those, all of a sudden, poof, you get results. I lost 5 pounds. I'm stronger. I'm more agile. My waist is 2 inches smaller. This is the evidence that gives you the power to realize who you are.
That's what liberates your spirit.
Yes.
And that's what that's the piece a lot of people miss that are, they're really into the spirituality, which is beautiful, but the body is the vehicle, and you have to maintain the vehicle in order to access the spirit. And, you can't, it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? You can't get to those higher levels when your base of security and safety, and if you're always worried about paying the rent and your back is killing you, and you don't want to go in public because you have really bad acne, or pick your problem, right? I mean, whatever it is, you can't really get into that esoteric spiritual world and life and be able to be receptive and relax and really tune in and let go and trust and feel energized and motivated to take action and make it happen. You can't get to any of that until you dial in your physical body, which is why I'm really grateful I had decades of experience as a professional in holistic health and wellness, because I am really solid. And plus, the older I get, the more I've had to really lean into those practices in my little toolbox to kind of keep my expected level of output. And, because, I'm a doer, right? As you are too. And I've got a lot going on, but there's no way I could sustain that if my vehicle wasn't, primed. And when I lose it a little bit and misstep, I know what to do to get back on. And, so it's very important that people, step by step, like the principle in Chinese medicine, right? Step by step. There's nature, and all of life has a progressive order of things. There's a right time, a right place to do everything. The seasons, right? Everything happens for a reason, and it's in its powerful, magical, all-knowing cycle. So first things first, you've got to take care of that physical body and get that dialed in before you can start opening up your heart channel and then going up, the chakras, as I don't, what did you call them? The Dantian centers.
Within Taoism, we call them Dantians. That means the
Yeah.
energy elixir field. And
So
so
true.
each
Yeah.
nectar of that is how you create an awareness, a self-realized state.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's beautiful just to hear someone mirror back. I mean, you're obviously the vast experience too, but your bodybuilding abilities and all that is very inspiring, because I have to say I've never met a Taoist master who's also a pro bodybuilder. That's crazy. You're like a double threat.
Yeah, I mean,
Awesome.
it's so important to feel into that. And people, they miss that component, and they get really obsessed with the yang excess.
Yeah.
So when you're moving the needle between yin and yang, and yin is the absorption of all colors, yang is the emission of all colors. That's the simplicity of reality. From a Taoist, when you perceive reality, it comes in the form of a bellows. A bellows is contracting and expanding at the same time. You're all things and nothing at the same time. And so for you and I, the flow state, as we put it, when we put our attention, intention to a goal, and we meet that goal with the evidence of our preparation and our execution of that, whether it's diet, exercise, the mental status is the most potent, because until you realize the mental state is all things, you still realize that's the seed of where these things come from. And I think that was where I got sort of this incredible level up as a teenager, from when I started bodybuilding when I was 10 to the age of about 19, when I was told in a voice in my head to go and find meditation. I'd never done it before. And back in those days, it was like Hare Krishnas, hairy armpits, and people running around singing, Age of Aquarius, right? So
Pamphlets at the airport.
Right. And so, there was nothing validated, but I accessed it through this meditation class with a grand master that was about 4 foot nothing. At that point, I was about 320 pounds, about 18% body fat, a gorilla, stupid, just nonsense. But, I also felt that being met with that yang energy, the body was saying, the hubcaps are coming off. You need to redirect your attention. It cannot contain this force. So, even at 800-pound squats, I couldn't contain the force, because you were being met with the physicality that was showing itself, that harnessing this energy was resulting in injury, which I didn't experience, but I could feel things starting to unravel.
Yeah.
When you get into that kind of weight, when you're pulling that weight, when you're squatting that weight, it's stupid. But I had a goal, because you probably are familiar with a guy named Fred Hatfield.
No.
You know who that is? Anyway, he was the first guy that broke the threshold of a 1,000-pound squat. So
wow.
in my mind, that was my goal, to do the 1,000-pound squat. I got up to 800, and that was it. That was good for me. But I don't think that was my PR, to be honest with you, because I had at least 2 or 3 reps out of that. And, you get the stories. If you look around, health and fitness, and you get someone who's supercharged and an icon, like someone like Ronnie Coleman, who was evidence of running that car into the ground, burning it at both ends. And furthermore, he should have met it with his realization. But you get to a certain point where you can't let go of that. It's like, I have to keep going until the grind is nothing left. And he's met it and brought himself back up to, being able to physically walk and things of that nature. But there was a disconnect, and it comes from the mental emotional state, which you made it very clear. And when you get overshadowed by certain things that give you ideas that this is not a good idea, you need to step back into the fire. You need to surround yourself with like-minded people that can give you direction, not isolate. Oppression is the worst thing. And that happens to so many people. People don't realize it's like, oh, this is just my own plight. No, it's happening to majority of people at some point. There's a facet of that they have to come to that realization that they're not being commandeered by their highest good. It's a very subsection of the environment that is giving them the ideas that this is a great idea. Does that make sense?
Totally. Well, a couple of things come to mind in that, you can get away with a lot, particularly when you're younger, but eventually your body starts giving you signals, and being aware and in tune and communicating not only with your intuition and your soul, but to have the wisdom to know what body signals mean, little aches and pains and this and that. And, just like life is always trying to help you and guide you. But eventually you've got to start paying attention. And there's some things I wish I knew when I was in my 20s and even my 30s that that I did differently, because for anyone listening who is in that age bracket, it's like, just keep in mind to someday you will be older, and doesn't matter how fit and healthy you are, someday your body is going to, present your report card. And I like to say, how you live now determines how you live later. So it's very, very important that you be in tune, aware, and respectful of the feedback that your body's giving you, to know the days off, know when to rest, know when you're pushing it, know the difference between a good pain and a bad pain, and all that stuff is very, very important. And you said something else too, very important about, we tend to isolate, right? And I'm just the queen of that. I'm a 9 in numerology, which is the hermit in the tarot. And I'm not really a hermit, but I've always been very independent and very serious about, my mission here in the earth and my work. And so sometimes when I'm hurting or something's bothering me, I do tend to withdraw and pull back. But what I've learned is it's what you said. It's the exact opposite of really what you should do, because, basically there's a reason why support groups do so well, because, it's very healing and nurturing to know, to share burdens together, and to feel seen and heard and truly understood. I mean, compassion is a nutrient. It's very powerful. And when people like you understand my pain, we get each other. You don't have to imagine. It'd be like me asking you, Sam, like, well, you could imagine what it was like if your wife, girlfriend, partner, whatever, let's just say, lost a baby, right? You can imagine. You feel bad for her, but nobody knows the pain that is for her, other than other women that have also lost a baby, so to speak. I mean, forgive the horrible example, but you know what I'm trying to say is that there's power in communing with people who have also direct experience. And that's where, mentors come in, and support groups, and help, and reaching out for help. It's sometimes it's the last thing we want to do. And some people are even embarrassed by it, or, and the I'll do it alone thing. But, I found that, well, I really didn't have a choice. Like I said, I had hit the wall. I was really burnt out. I was done. I needed help. I didn't want to live like that anymore. And I was very fortunate. I had access to a very accomplished mentor, Paul Chek, who happened to be a good friend of mine, who basically is the grandfather of holistic health and fitness. And we were friends for a long time and colleagues, but I actually hired him as a personal mentor to drag me out of that dark state. And and then the rest is history. So needless to say, he helped me very much.
And that is always something that you need to identify with. What is the remedy, the elixir that will make you realized and whole, which is really in definition what healing is. And that comes with that merging of those elements. And so, when you go from an extreme, because, you through your own admission, the number 9 within Taoism is the highest point of ascension and is the highest number. And we use that as a point. It is completion. You're a doer. You complete things. You start it and you finish it. And from that 9 is the birth of a new 9. Yeah. So you complete, and then you birth again. And so this is the symbiosis of yin and yang And furthermore, the bellows effect that we speak of, which is the contracting and expanding, and your ability to access that unification, because what you experienced was excessive burn of yang made
Yes.
you regress and invert too much yin, which is what becomes more damp, what becomes more dark, what becomes a position that is not material, that becomes so internalized that you don't see any light at the end of the tunnel.
Yep.
And so that's the burning of the candle. The ultimate is through your mission, if you choose to accept it, Ethan Hunt, is to find that center point, the vesicle. Your mission impossible is your mission possible. When you find that vesicle, we call that the Wu Ji, which is the primordial mother, the void that is the creation of all things. And from that, you access this incredible substance. We call it Fa Jun. And this is the pulpability, what someone would call, any of my parapsychologist friends, the psychokinesis, the energy, the charge that you're getting right now is your yes. Your yes is now, because you're oscillating through your physical body. You're getting a visceral, kinesthetic, somatic response. People go, how do you know that? I see it, and I experience it at will. That's the point of the magical blanket of me being a priest. It happens that I teach people clairvoyance, mediumship, channeling, energy healing, mental, emotional, spiritual. It's all under the guise of sensory perception. This is just part of it. And when you master that, my goodness, all bets are off. Because, as you said, we are now a tool that can advance and help raise that resonance that we refer to as humanity. And it will show itself through you as selflessness and servitude. You cannot fight it. You will not be controlled by the limitation of your finite mind. That is bankrupt. That is empty. You will show yourself as abundant, timeless, endless, limitless, infinite. That is the true nature of who you are. And it will show itself through that mastery. And oh, yes, and it will be yours. Oh, yes, it will. Furthermore, if I want to just take it to a physicist level, let's just water this down. To light, to wave, to matter, to particle, realize with your attention, intention, cutting from the cloth of perfection, the primordial mother, the unified state. And from that, my dear friend, the Buddhist monk would call that distortion, dukkha, which is the currency of this realm, frequency. You call this energy potential. Now, with your attention, intention, you're forming these different variables, and that energy has vibratory, frequential properties. And if met with resonance, oh, yes, it will be yours. Oh, yes, it will. That is the truth. You show it through your mastery of the physical body, of the emotional body, of the spiritual body. And I am so grateful to be in the presence of you, sharing this wealth of mastery to the betterment of humanity. So I am grateful for you, my dear friend.
Likewise, my goodness, likewise. Well, I'll say one thing that came to mind that hopefully is helpful for your audience is that, I came to really realize deep in my soul that I am not my mind. My mind is not me, and that was very, very powerful because, the way we think and our beliefs, I mean, when people really think about when they start become conscious of what they believe to be true, and it's like they just start thinking like, where did I get that belief? Like, where's that even coming from? Is it really true? How do I know it's true? Because we really, gnosis with a G as opposed to gnosis, right? Like, we really don't know anything unless we have that direct experience. So I started to realize, like, I started to just really embody, like, I am not my mind. And even when my brain starts, driving me crazy with crazy thoughts and all the shoulds and coulds and all that stuff, I started detaching from that. And then, as you become the observer. And I started connecting more, and I dropped down that, longest journey that we all take, that 4 to 6 inches from the head to the heart. And I started like, what feels better? How's my body feel about that? And what do I really feel about that? I started to change my words and the way I spoke. and I would listen to the way people spoke. I've learned the power of our words because we're spell casting, right, with the power of our words. And I just did a simple change, Sean, and I started changing from saying, well, I think we should do this, or I think that, or this is what I think. And I changed it and I started saying, I feel. I feel this. I feel like I'd like that color better, or I feel like I'd like this for dinner. I mean, stupid stuff, right? Just everyday stuff. But it started to shift something so powerful in me because it took me out of that masculine, which I was over masculinized. Nothing wrong with the masculine. We all need it, but I was just way too young, right? As you would say. And I just started to drop down more into the heart, more into the feminine energy of my feeling body, more in touch with what my body was telling me. And I started feeling my answers and asking myself, like, really me, what do you want? So it was just a very powerful shift that I experienced. And that's part of why I named my show Awakening Aphrodite, because it was awakening all of that in me that was always there dormant. And it's dormant in all of us. We're all the yin and the yang. We're all the masculine and the feminine. We're all of that and a bag of chips, I like to say. So it's about bringing all of who you are to the party, because you're going to be so much more powerful, right? Because most of us are only driving in first gear when we've got three more, so that's
Oh,
kind of a big part of how I kind of climbed up.
yeah. No, it's self-realized gnosis, as you put it. And I
Mm,
would parallel that, teaching ancient Taoist alchemy for decades is sort of like a realized state, because you're taking immortality and you're crystallizing it into the material. And the evidence is in the proof is in the pudding. I think the reason I gravitated to that self-realization through my teacher, Lao Tzu, who I commune with on a second by second basis, as I don't know anything. I'm as dumb as rocks. And everything that comes from this vessel is a wisdom teaching that is beyond my comprehension, as it should be, because this is the dialogue that I have with my over 171 different teachers that I channel at will, to the monologue, which is the primordial mother. And that comes in the now moment, where, you do demystifying things like something as benign as giving someone a psychic reading, and you have their mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual state inside of 30 seconds. And people go, what the how do you do that? Well, I'm childlike in my nature. I'm not committed to it. I'm not looking for you to praise me as the next coming of Moses or Jesus Christ. All I'm doing is reading information that is in the field of possibilities that happens to be your auric field. And from that, we have a very basic and ancient system of reading the excess to deficiency within your dantians that will reveal the true nature of who you are. And it blows people's minds constantly, because how is that possible? It's very possible when you start developing sensory perception. And that is just a skill that, like anything else, like exercise, and I think that's why you and I gravitate to this aspect of it, because you can master something that is self-realized and repeatable. It must be repeatable to go from a delusional transitory state of like nothing to a validated state of gnosis, as you would put it, knowing, from belief to knowing through an experiential moment. You must be able to repeat it, or it's
that's
nothing.
that's
It's
part
delusion.
that's part of what makes it scientific. It has to be
Mhm.
repeatable. That's part of the definition of having it be science, that it has to be repeatable. So there you
Right.
go.
And that's critical within this type of stuff. And
Mhm.
whether it's something as sort of like nominal as my putting my arm out, driving a spike through it and pulling it back out again, and people go, there's no entry or exit point, how is that possible? It is the now moment, and you are accessing a point of awareness. So I'm talking about stuff where the bug that bit me 30 plus years ago was witnessing, first and foremost, the entry into meditation. So I was harboring this idea and internalizing it, that from picking up at the age of 10 Education of a Bodybuilder by Arnold Schwarzenegger was my realization that that was true. Hey, it says here in the book, if you eat this way and exercise, I'm going to look like that. I want to look like that. And I was not overshadowed or deluded by mentors over my lifetime. I started fasting when I was 10 years old. You get a nature of understanding the true potential of the human body when you master the endocrine system. And, you know, furthermore, by the time I was in my late teens, people were like, well, what are you running? To the new age Instagram influencers, they call these PEDs. Back in the day, we just called them steroids. What are you running? Nothing. I'm eating broccoli and eating chicken and fish. And they're like, bullshit.
And
You're
lifting.
running something. There's no way.
Mhm.
And, you know, when I mastered that fasting aspect and then I supplemented it with the simplicity of amino acids, which most people couldn't even comprehend, but that's really still 40 years later, we're still playing with the same nonsense where that's the groundbreaking evidence of nutrition and supplementation today. It's still the foundational 20 plus amino acids that give you the evidence of whatever it is that you think is a new potion. It's like painting the pig a different color.
This
It's just,
body is the building blocks of protein. That's it.
and you paint a pig a different color. I had basically a formula of 8 essential aminos, which your body cannot produce,
Yeah.
that you get from the source of protein. And I would take 4 to 6 teaspoons of that, which on a chart of measurement of protein was 4 grams of protein. So I was taking collectively maybe 40 to 60 grams of protein and exponentially raising my strength and my muscle tissue through that harnessing of that method and system that I used. And to this day, I will take people with really low test levels and get them into an environment through the energy and the heat and cold process, and they'll get into numbers in excess of 1,000 for a test level. And they're like, how is that possible? You're not taking anything. No, you're nurturing what is within you and you're accessing it. And growth hormone's another great one because, you know, people are very obsessed with hormone replacement therapy today. And they don't understand that they are limiting their potential, and they think that they're a dried up raisin when they're not. They are just starting to harness it. But, you know, it's alluring. You know, get the celebrities back in the 90s, and I had many friends that had anti-aging clinics, some of the very few that had celebrities across the globe that would come and see them when growth hormone was $150 an IU. That today is another phenomenal state of awareness that, you know, you don't need this type of stuff. People are going to resort to things that are temperature based to evoke the very things that are inside you that give you that potential, where you can build that muscle tissue and get that recovery instead of being obsessed that, you know, that's the answer. And, you know, I could go on. But basically, I measured meditation where I was able to sit in a room with half a dozen misfits begging for this meditation that we had no idea was. It's like mind stillness or whatever. I had no idea what it was. I just knew I could pick things up, crush them, and throw them, and my attention intention would create a result. So when I went into this meditation class, this little grandmaster, she was about 4 foot high, half a dozen misfits in a rec center in the middle of a ghetto, and I'm sitting there like an overgrown ape with a back pain, attempting to perform this thing they call a lotus position. I'm like, I'm not doing it. I got back pain. I'm thinking about all the noise in the background. I'm probably going to get stabbed as I walk back to my car in this really bad neighborhood, screaming, yelling. This woman stands there, wet, maybe 40 pounds. I'm sitting down, overgrown ape, and she comes up to my eyebrows, and she stands in the middle of these half a dozen of beggars, and she goes, I want you to listen to my voice. And I'm like, look, this is, in my mind, I'm like, this is not happening. Whatever this is I'm pursuing, I need to let it go. And she said, I'm going to listen. I want you to listen to my voice. And I'm like, uh-huh. And when I finish, everything will fall away. And no, I kid you not, Amy, for 15 minutes, it went from it will fall away to, and with my eyes open, I had harnessed the ability to silence everything for 15 minutes straight. And I was like, screw this bodybuilding. I want that power. That power goes beyond everything that I've ever experienced before. It is met with an ability that is in my opinion, the answer to all things. And it was just the spark of the beginning. And then, you know, we can go over it on your channel, but, you know, it's crazy how once you harness this stuff and it's met, and the most complex component is realizing that material physical flesh is repeatable, is mastered. You can be the maestro to your 50 trillion cells. That's what internal alchemy is harnessing that electric potential of those 50 trillion cells and moving it in the direction that you want it to. And it just never ceases to amaze me. I love and welcome conversations like the one we're having, because this doesn't meet enough. This yin to yang is not enough. People just stay in their lane and like, I'm all physical, I'm all spiritual. And then they have no idea that when they meet those two, oh, what a symbiosis, what a beautiful relationship is met.
Well, that's the great duality, right? I mean, that is life force. It's when those two forces meet, that's when we have the Tao. So, you know, so many things come to mind with that amazing meditation story, you know, like...
it gets better. I'm going to save it for your. I'm going to save it for your podcast. But within a week, you mentioned Dark Night of the Soul that ended with that.
I have a feeling you have a lot of stories, son.
Oh my goodness, I've seen it all.
But it makes me think about, like, we all know, you know, the little, even like the Karate Kid movie, right? Like Mr. Miyagi, and, you know, it's like, you know, walk softly and carry a big stick, you know, and Bruce Lee, I mean, it's like, and, you know, I like to give people the analogy of like two cars pulling up at a stop sign, and, you know, one's a Ferrari and one's a little Yugo. And the Yugo like guns it when it gets a green light, and the Ferrari just lets them go, because you know what? The Ferrari knows it can take it in 2 seconds if it wanted to, but it doesn't need to show off because the Ferrari knows its ability, you know? So that's what I heard, you know, that master say to you.
I love this part of this symbiosis, right? So I refer to a lot of my students, I refer to the Mr. Miyagi effect. And I use the analogy of the Pinto, and they're like, well, you know, where is it? I'm harnessing this stuff. They measure their abilities on a daily basis. I have a system to train them in that. This is not some blind faith delusion. If you're going to commit to a mastery, you must have evidence on a daily basis, or it is just delusional. But the Mr. Miyagi effect comes with the Pinto analogy, which I love the way you're talking about that, because I always tell people, you're driving down the road in a Pinto and I tell you to pull over to the side of the road. And they're like, okay, go to the front of the hood and open the hood, and poof, voila, you have a Lamborghini engine that was being created all this time through your own self-mastery. And you don't even have any idea of your potential. And it's just being met right now as it is so, because it's necessary for you to regulate and validate that as you ascend. And it comes with that mastery, so that, you know, most people use fear-based, like Kundalini experiences are going to be so overwhelming. I mean, I've only met 2 Kundalini masters in my lifetime, and they were in the jungles of Indonesia, and they were self-mastered in the sense that they both could levitate. And furthermore, the only other person I've ever seen levitate in my lifetime was one of my students. And people go, wow, well, Jeffu, how come you're not levitating? Because I could give a shit about levitating. If you meet the requirement to acquire that information, I will share it with you. But other than that, that doesn't make me warm and fuzzy inside. What makes me warm and fuzzy inside is witnessing physical, mental, emotional, spiritual healings. And that comes with that now moment. And so, you know, the baubles are the concerning part. So as you acquire this ascended state, you don't want to be distracted with, this is me. My identity is I'm the light worker. I'm the energy healer. I'm the spiritual person. I'm the guru. I'm the this. I'm that. I'm something. This can be problematic on your own journey of self-realization. You must realize you bring that back to home. You absorb that, and then you become whole. You move on to the next level. It's like a video game. Next level of ascension, you absorb it. You become expanded.
Well, it's like Joseph Campbell's concept of transcend and include, right? As we go through the archetypes of life and our soul evolves, the idea is to learn the lessons, acquire the skills, walk that hero's journey or heroine's journey at that stage of life, and then you include it, you integrate it, you take it with you because it's preparation for what you're going to need at the next level of your soul's evolution. I mean, that it's what you're saying is just, it's just amazing. I resonate with it so much. And it reminds me of what you mentioned at the beginning of the show when you said, you had asked me, how would you describe yourself or something of that matter? And what you just said was you said it much more articulately right now, what my answer was trying to be, like that. It's like, I don't mean to be coy when people ask me, but it's like, I'm kind of everything. It's like, I don't even want to like pigeonhole and label myself as a holistic health professional or whatever. It's like, I've learned I'm so eclectic. We all are. We all have so many needs and interests. We're all polymaths. We all have abilities that the world is amazing. The world is just infinite possibilities, and it all interests me. And let me tell you, it's overwhelming because there's so many things I want to do, and we only have so much time every day, right? So that's a whole nother skill set of like managing my time better, because like you, I get lost in that right brain no time. I lose track of time so easily because I get so involved and engrossed with something that interests me and is passionate. But isn't that a beautiful gift? Because that's when you're in that higher vibrational mindset of you lose track with time. You're not in the left brain. Thank God for that. That's a relief. I like being there. It's much more relaxing. You're in an open, expansive state, and all of you is there. And so I'm so grateful that I've lived long enough to feel that, because I can say honestly, 10 years ago, I never did. Even with all my successes, it was always in my head. I was very heady, like, okay, check, I did that. Okay, check, I did that. Okay, check, accomplishment. But it was like so sad how many people like experience and accomplish these wonderful things in the material world, but they don't really take it in, embody it, feel it, gratitude, total experience. And then we don't celebrate it. We move on to the next one. Like, okay, good. And then boom, next one. But we never take that time to take a pause, take a breath, and relish in it. Let yourself just swim in it and feel it, and like you're taking a bath in it, and like, yay me. And that's what just enlivens you. That's your soul's fuel to then be ready for the next one. And we wonder why we're all burnt out, right? Because all our energy is out, out, out. We never let ourselves replenish and be fed off that wonderful, endless elixir that's life, giving us these rewards and these evolutions. And it's just been an amazing experience for me to take the time and experience that, because that is worth living for. That keeps me going, and that's what I want for other people to experience too. Wouldn't the world be an amazing place if we all felt that more?
Whoa, I amen to that, my dear friend. Amen to that, because it's that desirous that becomes, it blossoms into inquiry into contemplation, and that sparks that desire that turns into curiosity, and that curiosity is met with hopium, and hopium blossoms into belief, and belief is then nurtured into a knowing. I always remind people, if you're thinking, you are not knowing. If you're knowing, you are feeling, and that feeling is the said evidence of truth for you, your absolute truth. Anyone that gives you an absolute truth about face and run in the other direction, that can only be validated by the experiencer. It will not be met by someone else's version of this experience that is not yours. Yours is yours, theirs is theirs, and then there's a unified state where we access that primordial mother, the unified state, and the evidence of that is what good old Bruce Lee would call the flow, baby. We call it Wu Wei. Wu Wei, which is effortless action, effortless effort, is met with that. And people are like, well, Chifu, mentors and coaches and manifest teachers and all this stuff, they say you must meet with action. Breath is action, baby. Breath. Respiration is the primordial knowing. When you access, and we go deep into primordial breathing and the embryonic breathing and the aspect of breathing from consciousness, not the physical flesh, this is met with limitation if your mind believes, and my teacher, Jade Emperor, will remind the man mortality is real, but you are not the man. You are not the flesh and blood that looks back at you. You are all things. That means that when we harness that 50 trillion cell potential of that electro charge of 0.07 millivolts, you are now imperium, dominion, maestro to your very reality, and your road to the Wizard of Oz is met with no detours, Dorothy. You will find that end, and that end will be completion, and then the birth of a new beginning, which is the symbiosis of yin and yang. And that template is the evidence of all things. You drop that down on your reality, and you will find the true nature, the vesicle of who you are, and it will show itself in Wu Wei, synchronistic, serendipitous moments of it's good to be you. Oh my goodness, I can't believe you're the luckiest person on earth, as we all are, met with that, not being controlled or corrupted with the material state that the humanness, the human condition is real. I always remind people your emotions don't control you, you control your emotions. This is an entry-level mastery that I like to take people on, because you can then capture those emotions and move them off the computer screen like an icon when mastered, with met. That means you dissolve the emotion, you dissolve the feeling, and you're left with the thought, the very evidence of wisdom teaching that you can reflect on, that doesn't meet with something that someone would call, from a psychologist's perspective, a trigger, a trauma. This is all energy potential. There is no exception. And we're not talking about detaching yourself from the true secret source of the human condition, because you meet through the labyrinth, your realization of the human being through the finite mind. The human being, the superpower of that is met with the sentience and furthermore, empathy. This is your superpower. And when you realize that, the selflessness and servitude is your very default. You cannot fight it. It is who you really are, and you will be met with that. And if I was to raise that with an incantation from my teacher, Jade Emperor, it would go like this. A power abundant in its giving you will receive, unifying the body with the spirit with the energy, bringing heaven to earth, transcending all is one, one is all, revealing perfection manifest. That is your gift. That is your offering. That is your gift. That is your offering. That is your gift. That is your offering. Mic drop to that. But you can feel the visceral effects of that.
Yep.
Because those words are imbued. That is an incantation. That is a magical realization that you are entering into the ether, that unified state where you are whole. And we have this communion, or someone by the name of Greg Braden would refer to it as a mirror neuron effect, a unified state. How much I appreciate his simplistic neurology or neuroplasticity that he likes to refer to. We call it Tao. We call it all-knowing. We call it an ancient ritual that has been going on for hundreds of thousands of years, and it's met when you get to experience it for yourself. Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's just so awesome. You know, part of my heart goes out to people that are so removed from everything you just shared, because like we said, it's like even like to simplify it to something more tangible, like our diets, right? Like people, I always say people don't know how good they can feel, but it's such a catch-22, because you've got to get in the healthy lifestyle to start feeling good, to know, because they're feeling like crap and their back hurting in the morning and needing 10 cups of coffee and having no motivation and can't focus. That becomes the new normal. And it's so sad, because it's like a catch-22. They can't feel better till they start doing it to realize how much better they can feel. But that's similar to the mind, right? And the experience, all that beautiful wisdom and the incantations you just shared, is a lot of that I found is hard for people to relate to because they've never really been there. It's all beautiful to hear, but I just wonder, how do you help people get there? Like for me, I've always, since I've been a child, had a very strong connection with spirit. Ever since I can remember. I remember being a little girl, like out playing in my backyard in the grass by myself, and talking to Great Spirit, and just talking. And my mom's like, "Who are you talking to?" And it wasn't an imaginary friend; it was God, Goddess, whatever you want to call the divine. And but that has kept me from basically throwing in the towel through all these years and through my dark night of the soul and all that. I've always had I've come back to that and connected with that, and it's pulled me through. I've always wondered how people deal with traumas and hardships without having that connection. But I'm wondering, how do you help people get a taste of that? Because what you and I are saying the same thing, right? We've got to experience it. We've got to see the evidence of it, right? So, because it's so far removed for a lot of us, I'm just curious, how do you get people to get a taste so they can feel how real it is?
Well, first, great question. First, you have to realize, what is this construct? What is it made up of? And if you dumb it down to, a spiritual path of dualism, non-dualism, non-centric, centric, these are all terms that you use within a spiritual path of realizing what is the polarizing effects. No matter how many people I've spoken to on their own spiritual path of self-realization, I can always reflect back down to the symbiosis of yin and yang, no matter how detailed their epiphanies, their awakenings, their guides, their angels. They're like, holy crap, it is that simplistic.
Yep.
Yin and yang is the evidence of what we define within this currency of this realm, this dimension people want to refer to it as, is energy potential. So first you must meet that. You have the physical flesh, you have contemplation in what you believe is your finite mind. But now the first thing that must be evidence-based is the electromagnetism that basically runs through your physical flesh. That divinity is evident within that symbiosis. So we activate the energy potential, and I don't care who you are. I've never felt energy. I'm this, I believe that. I will turn you on in a fraction of a heartbeat, and people get completely blown away because they're using this sort of lens of reality, and that is the first indicator of self-evidence. You must be able to experience it and repeat it. So energy potential is first met with activating the energy architecture within the physical flesh, and that only takes a few moments, and people start to get off to the races, and they're like, holy crap, I can't.
So you start them in their body.
Well, you start them in their body and you show them the evidence of the electromagnetism. And then furthermore, that becomes even more fortified as we start going deeper into things that are complex from a human condition perspective. The secret ingredients to most people that are walking the mundane sense of reality is thoughts, feelings, and emotions. So that's it. You can sum that up to everything. That's it. So now let's look at that ingredients, and how do we meet you to a place where you move past that as you believe your mind is separate from you. And so that comes from that baseline activation, the physical body. That is so easily met. Most people are like, oh, I have this issue. I've got this shoulder problem. I've got this back issue. I can't squat. Oh, show me the range of motion. Oh, it's 2 inches. Okay, this is what I need you to do. And they're like, okay, get down on the ground. Oh, my back hurts. Get on the ground, roll over 3 times. Now get up. And they're like, oh, my back's going to hurt. Oh, my back doesn't hurt. What? Now squat. Holy shit, my ass is touching my ankles. How is that possible? That's neuroplasticity, my friend. And that's how fast you access that. That charge you got right now. You're picking up what I'm putting down, my dear friend, and you show that evidence of how you can reset yourself. Because within Taoism, the reset is a count of 9. You go from creation, birth to completion in a 9 count. And that means your potential of being realized as all things and nothing is within that 9 count. And it's met on that cycle. So your reality can instantly be realized, and it may come in the form of manifestation, magic, healing, and you will see that evidence instantaneously, realizing that's the symbiosis from completion to creation, and it's never ending. And it's the now moment. You must access the secret source. And through that unified state, you start with the basics. You start with the toddler stuff. You start with embodying the tactile effects of the physical flesh, and you meet it with that electromagnetism. You show them that energy potential, and they're like, holy crap, I'm not the same. No, you're not. And I'll show you how quickly you can change what you perceive as limited to being unlimited with these techniques. And that returns to the method of the madness. All this other stuff is Bobby, as my grandmother would say, Bobby cockle nonsense. Until you can show people, it means nothing. You need to be able to show them, and they need to be able to validate it for themselves as an experiencer. So, you know, physics and in neurology and all that stuff, I always say, if you come from psychology, neurology, biology, you are limited at best. You must embody that. That is one lens as you move forward. It's a beginning, a creation of something profound. But once you complete that, you create again. You must realize that you're all these things. And there's a processes. And that's where alchemy is second to none. And I love teaching people this stuff because you cannot make this shit up. When you see things that are met with something that would be transitory. So a paranormal, supernatural, a lucid dream. I had a prediction. I was talking to dead people. A grandma speaks to me. God is present. These are all transitory moments. You must be able to take grasp of them and go from something that is not permanent to permanence, where we talk about this when there's a point of no return. So you detach and attach as the now moment. That means that.
And I would add, give weight to those situations that have happened. Our culture doesn't give enough credit and acknowledgement of like things like you just said, like the paranormal. We kind of just blow it off or poo-poo it, but that's your soul. That's great spirit. That's message is trying to come through to you. So give it its due. You know, like the dreams and the intuitions and the synchronicities, and that's the way great spirit works. And I've learned to really bring into my consciousness when those things happen, because that's life trying to love you.
Well, you know, I mean, that's it. You want to master the conscious and unconscious process and merge it as one. And, you know, I've been measuring my brainwaves for years. Sure, I see physical healings at 40 to 100 hertz, up to 400 hertz. You're going to get a gamma brainwave wake-up call that embodies all that thing. So once you hit gamma, you can access every frequency from epsilon all the way up to lambda and above. They don't even have words for the kind of levels of frequency that we get to within that conscious state. There's no words to describe that. It's evidence in the experience. I want to see evidence. You know, that same week that I had the meditation, then I channeled my teacher Lao Tzu the following day, where it's a visceral kinesthetic response where it saturates the physical flesh. I was emitting so much heat, which I still do, where you will experience it. Most of the people in that class got out the stick and the marshmallow and started cooking it to the emission of the heat and the absolute merging of yin and yang. And my teacher was 60 years into it, and he's like, fuck you. Fuck you. He's like, what? You're some overgrown ape that walks in here with no idea of spirituality, and you're met with this instantaneous. And that's really the beauty of childlike in your nature. And I refer to this within all my students, anyone that I teach, that you can be realized instantaneously. You can be met with something that I've experienced for biologically 30 plus years and many lifetimes before this. You can be met with that instantaneously, because this is the mirroring effect of this state. I am going to merge with that resonance, and you are going to become whole, and you're going to remember who you are. Oh, yes, you will. And that's that power, that potency that we speak of, that you, through your wisdom teaching, share through all the things that as you said, it's not limited by an identity or a category or some, you know, empty words. It shows from your ability to show others what it takes to remember who they are. Yeah. And it can be through that instantaneous moment. And the primordial evidence of that is the respiration. Between the breath in and the breath out is where you hold that. That's what we call absorbing the riches. And when you hold that, you start to saturate the physical flesh with this unified state that is visceral, kinesthetic, somatic, and you start breathing from the consciousness, not the respiration of the physical flesh. And these are all mastered states. This is part of the alchemy. That's why I always tell people, I teach people this stuff because I get excited by it. I imagine it's like Big Trouble in Little China meets Last Airbender. They have a baby, and this is your magical mystery ride of self-realization, as it should be. And, that's, you're calling from California. I had many, many years mentoring and being a spiritual teacher to quite a few people within the sphere of the...
I'm actually on the East Coast, actually.
Oh, you're back on the East
New England. I'm a California girl at heart, but I'm actually in New England, and that's a whole long story.
Okay.
So be in California.
Right. And so, I spent many years mentoring and being a spiritual advisor to most of the people within Silicon Valley that you name it. I've met them, I've taught them. It's part of it. And that was the path where all of a sudden people are like, well, where have you been? Resistance of wanting to even be in the space, quite frankly. One of my teachers said, it's time for you to now step into this space and start teaching what we know to be true and share it with the world. And so then you get into this ugly thing of self-hatred called social sphere or social media, interweb. This is this nasty vehicle that, if not met with a self-realization, it becomes a very, very dark place for a lot of people. They become isolated. They become separate. They don't, it's conversations like the one we're having here is where people are met to remember who they are. But in most cases, they get fixated on some facet of social media that drags them into a rabbit hole, and them and Alice in Wonderland just never stop falling. And that is the problem with this commandeering of your attention. And you get into that state where if you are emotional, you're suggestible. That means that someone can enter your unconscious and your ability to commandeer your attention very, very easily if you're mastered in that. You need to realize that that's the most valuable commodity, your attention. That's it. So where you lay that, as you put it through your own admission, I had my attention outside of myself. That's why I felt this lack of. I felt a limitation within the physical body that was met by the essence of yin, which is the emotional and mental state. These are the material evidence of that deeper nature of yin, which would refer to the primordial mother, which is the true essence of intuition and that moisture, that maternal state, that expansive knowing, that grounding is not met when you dance on the line of that vesica point. And so
I'll add too, with social media, what's very important, is that we have to be as protective of what's coming at us, and just like we are with our diet and the information and what we expose our brains and our bodies to, is we have to protect ourselves and go on. People are always on these diets, right? Well, go on like a media diet, because everything that you're exposing yourself to is influencing you, and you have to be very astute and very picky and what you allow into your space, whether it be literally or figuratively in your mind. So I've found that with social media, I've really tried to stay focused on, I'm using it, it's not using me. I'm very grateful to it. You and I are able to connect through it. Yay, this is wonderful. We're able to be with the audience today and everyone sharing this experience together. Yay, super grateful. But when it starts going dark, when you find that you're going down those rabbit holes, like you've lost track of time, you're now late for your next appointment, or you start getting in this negative exchange, or find yourself defending yourself, or feeling insecure, less than of how you look in your profile, and someone giving a nasty comment, and it can be very, very dark. But I've really tried to set that's where my discipline comes in, like limits, like, okay, I log off at 8:30 at night. You know, I know enough about blue rays and magnetic rays coming off computers and screens that affects your hormones and your sleep. I'm done. You're not going to reach me unless it's an emergency. I also limit scrolling time because why? Because I just don't, that's a reactive state to me. You know, I'm not the one kind of initiating. I'm more like scrolling through. So if I'm looking for something, that's something. But my point is that we want to use it. We don't want it to use us. And you know, when you log on intentionally, like, okay, I'm going to make a post. I'm going to see what's going on. But you know what? In 10 minutes, I'm out because I'm going to go back to living my life, my real life with my real friends and my real interactions, the people who really know me, not think they know me, and all of me, you know. So that's kind of how I look at social media, kind of like a necessary evil, but I try to look at the good aspects of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. We met. This is the excitement that I have.
Yeah.
I find it entertaining when people, you know, I'll get comments where people are extremely limited with their perception of reality, and their description of an event through social media shows themselves how deficient they are in these very aspects, because that's a revealing. Whatever is internalized within you that you hate about other people is just who you really are.
You're
And you know,
projecting.
it's like that mirroring effect. So when you show it to yourself, listen, listen, but very, very at that point when you're expressing yourself like that, you're not you're not nurtured enough to love yourself enough to realize that that is the truth. The lack of acceptance and approval and validating who you are is not evident, and that will transmute into the mental emotional state, which is where people get caught up in stuff. I mean, I love teaching, you know, judges and attorneys and accountants how to master their mental emotional state, and they're like, "Holy crap!" Like, example, I'm in tax season, and I've never been high as a kite like I am now. I couldn't give a shit. I'm like so relaxed that it's absolutely impossible for anything to move my needle in the way that would give me a reaction,
Yeah.
because they're mastered. They can intercept what would be a distorted, as my dear friend the Buddhist monk would call, dukkha, the distortion of your reality through the lens of something that was temporary, transitory, which would be triggers, traumas, things of that nature. When you're able to access it like Spider-Man, and you can move it off the screen, off your computer screen, like an icon, holy moly, you are empowered immediately, because that's all it is. It's energy potential. It ends and starts there, yet you use it through that lens. And I would say, furthermore, being void of time and space is not necessarily considered a bad thing when you realize that that fluidity is all that's needed to be met, and you find yourself. The more that you're in a timeline would bring you back to this material state of humanness, which can be problematic. And some people would argue, as yourself, listen, I got a job, I got things to do. This is always met with the truth, and it is true. Yet you are the master, keeper, creator of your reality. And that can change too, where these things are no longer moving the needle, where, holy crap, I just like I step into one shit after another, where it is just all good to be me, as it is with you. Yet you're such a master that you're critical of yourself. And the fact that you are so perfectionist shows in that very energy, because you're a master of that. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And you know, it's just I've really learned, it's probably we all have, that we just have to be very protective of what we expose ourselves to in every regard, whether that be, you know, again, with food, with, you know, in any kind of incoming information. You know, I mean, I used to listen to a couple really great podcasters that are great information, and always cutting edge of what's going on in the world and the news. And, you know, everybody knows how things have really been, wow, we're going through an incredible period of the human race right now, to say the least. But I just had to stop listening to for a while because I just started to get like so anxious and wound up and pissed off and like this is because I like to I'm a warrior goddess. I like to protect the innocent. There's a lot of Artemis in me, and it just absolutely pisses me off when we have a lot of things going on in the world that people would not consent to if they knew. If they
Yeah.
really knew what was happening, like the chemtrails being sprayed, the vaccines in food, organic food label is gone to shit. I mean, it means nothing anymore. They can spray it with glyphosate and all this stuff as a drying agent because they're doing after the fact, so it's considered not a pesticide, so they get through a labeling loophole. I mean, it's just endless examples of people having no morals, no scruples, and a lot of us not being aware and wondering why we feel sick and tired and all these problems and turbo cancers and all this stuff is going on. But if we knew what was going on, if we looked behind the Wizard of Oz curtain, we would be there would be riots in the street. So there's a lot of me gets really fired up and pissed off. And I was finding that
That
it was
passion is beautiful, my friend.
yes, but it was negatively affecting my energy every day, San. I mean, I was like, I was getting consumed by it and I had to make it productive. You know what I mean? And plus it just wasn't good for me. I didn't want to be in that energy all the time.
Yeah.
So anyway, my point is we have to kind of protect ourselves, and the dosage, right? The Tao, the middle way, the path, right? We have to know how much is enough, that expanding, yin and yang, it's always a flow. And okay, that's enough of that. I'm turning it off. Enough. I'm going to go outside and put my feet on the grass and look at the birds and, all that kind of stuff, because that's the only way that I have learned to control my energy, control my experience, be the master of my life and not be reactive. For a long time, that was my prayer, to be non-reactive, right? Like how often do we just, oh, she said that, he said that, oh, the dog's barking, oh, my kid just threw up, or, like we're reacting, right? It's a very disempowered way to live, to be reacting all the time. I wanted to be the creator. I didn't want to be like, was it who, it might have been Lao Tzu, your guy, who said about be still like water, or be like water, in that water, the ultimate yin symbol, right, is always shapes, molds to the shape of the container. It flows with the situation. It's not rigid, in the way that it responds to things. And I always think about that. I'm like water. I mean, I can be solid in my center, but I can flow as well.
It goes where man cannot go. And all rivers return back to the ocean. That is the truth. And that nature is
And we are not at the ocean. We're the ocean in a drop.
right. And that the mortality is simplistic, yet can be crystallized and realized as immortality. Furthermore, that's longevity. That's the potency of longevity, or understanding how that is, so that your average click, for anyone that's breathing air in today's society, the longevity timeline should be no less than 120 years of age. That's the limited potential, let alone what the possibility is. But you have to step outside of this human condition.
That's right.
And when we get commandeered by the mental emotional stuff, it makes us fragile. It makes us open to what someone would call a clink in your armor, or however you want to see it. But it will start
mind virus.
Yeah. I mean, that's really the simplicity of something like hypnosis, which is an entry level basement sort of starting point. I've got 6 kids of my own, so I taught them all.
Wow.
The simplicity. First thing is ground basement level is hypnosis. You understand conscious and unconscious process and how quickly you can commandeer someone's attention intention. And then you go deeper into it and realize that some of the most failed, obnoxious abusers of these types of concepts are politicians and influencers and celebrities and things of that nature. And you see it in their inability to deliver that completion. And so, two failed students of someone by the name of Tony Robbins, people like Obama and Gavin Newsom, people of this nature, they're really atrocious at being able to commandeer someone's attention with simple things like hypnosis, which they all use. They all use as a manipulator to enter your unconscious mind. And I always remind people, if you're emotional, you're suggestible. So that's entry without you consciously going, well, why is it that I'm starting to think about these things? Like, I'm afraid that the stock market's going to fail and the sky's going to fall out and brimstone and fire is turning up tomorrow and death and destruction, rinse, wash, and repeat is a cycle of how you commandeer someone's attention. And so, you watch them and you see a politician's classic. It's what they would refer in a neuro-linguistic programming perspective. Maybe you're familiar with it. It's called NLP.
Yep.
It's pacing and leading.
It's programming. Yep.
I have a dream. Oh, thank you for anchoring that. My dream is I want to see peace in humanity. And you start going, oh my goodness, that's horrible. Do you have a better way to deliver this consciousness rather than attempting to mind control someone through this path? And I think that's my only personality. I have personality. I like people to know that being witness to healing is the now moment that doesn't require your participation. So you're no place, no person, no thing. I have a personality. I like eating chocolate bonbons, driving my side by side in the desert at 100 miles an hour. And I do watch Netflix occasionally, maybe not that much anymore, but that does not require me to be all things. And so that lens is where you get into the exciting secret sauce, where it's all resonance. It has nothing to do with the moral compass of the universe, which so many people get caught up in. And that's part of the humanists. And there's nothing wrong with that, but don't be distracted by that, because that is very limited at best. Once you realize you can exercise the energy, the emotion, the feeling, you are liberated. You become liberated. You become whole. And this is the exciting part about our being reunited, and it feels so good. This friendship.
Isn't that Peter's term? I think they sung that song.
Right. This is a friendship that depends on where you're at in your own scale of realization, whether you believe in reincarnation or incarnation, that's for you to decide. But if you do, we've been here before, my dear friend. We have kindled and rekindled and reignited a friendship that we've had in many lifetimes. This is what happens. The transmission of your resonance brings this to you. It's no coincidence whatsoever. I believe, I know to be true, there are none. And that's part of the journey of self-realization, is when that comes together and you go, whoa. And that visceral feeling you keep getting when we unify and commune with a consensus of unification, you get the charge through your body and you're like, whoa, okay, he had me at hello. Yes, this is the very knowing, because you are beyond the thought, beyond the finite, intellectual, corrupted, bankrupt mind. You are experiencing it as a knowing. And if more people, as my dear friend Hans Wilhelm would say, everything is contracting and expanding. I am contracting and expanding. I know if I'm contracting, I'm going to run in the other direction. If I'm expanding, I'm going to move into it. And this is the journey. I don't know.
That's a great way to look at it. I'm always teaching people about embodiment. We're so detached from our bodies and, contracting and expanding. And I always think of it as like, bring your energy up, bring your energy down. Like, does your body get tight, or does your body open up and relax? Like, can you breathe? Can you not breathe? But that's great. I'm going to add that to my repertoire.
Well, that's the thing. What I was getting back to is my disdain for NLPers. I have.
Yes.
Yeah. When I see it, I'm like, I see you. I see you. And all of a sudden, they don't like being seen, because it's generally offered as a manipulation. It's not used to imbue and help someone embodiment. Now,
right.
That's not saying that there are practitioners out there that don't do that.
Well,
But
it's
generally,
manipulative.
Yeah.
It's manipulative.
Extremely manipulative.
Yeah.
And
covertly manipulative.
Well, it can be. Absolutely. When someone tells you can't be hypnotized, that's a lie.
Right.
100%. And people need to get that straight. my kids and I play street magic down in Vegas on the strip here. We'll go down there and play around, and people are always partying. They're all excited to get, into, different states. They're just having a good time. And I'll walk up to them and say, "You want to experience bliss?" And they're like, "Yeah." And their friends get their camera out, and then before you know it, they're in a deep trance, but standing up. And they're like, "How did that happen?" And their friend goes, "Oh." And I'm like, okay, what's going on here? What is the prescription? First and foremost, I think we should make sure that they're continually having this constant bliss. How's that sound? And they're like, yeah. Well, what else would you like to experience or have them experience? Why don't we do something as simplistic as reversing hallucination of forgetting who they are, forgetting their name, and me, I look like Justin Bieber. And they're like, yeah, okay. And then when you bring their attention back, because they're in what they call a somnambulistic state, which is a deep state of trance, which would be closer to an epsilon state. And these sort of simple transitory states are mastered. They go, holy crap, this is Justin Bieber. And of course, I look like Justin Bieber, right? Not at all. This is part of attention, intention. And everyone needs to understand that that's an entry level. Everyone needs to know that it's possible. And when you master it, you realize that the more your attention, the more abilities that you have to instantly change your life and commandeer and take control consciously of your mind at 100%, not the old Keebler gnome version, which Bruce Lipton would give us evidence that it's a 5% consciously, 95% unconscious. That's just conjecture and variables. There isn't a real measurement where someone would come out with that data. I'd like to see it. But let's just say that you have less control until otherwise noted. And when you're 100%, then you become empowered, because that's where you should always be, which is that knowing. And that brings us, we have come to the end of the road. I'm getting that hook. It's coming in there, and I could see my dear friend has to get the walks in or the exercise, and I want to talk.
I actually have someone coming to fix a fireplace tonight, and one of my dogs was very naughty when I was gone the other day. And but this is, oh my goodness, we could obviously just talk for hours. I'm so grateful that you contacted me. Thank you so much. And I do feel like we somehow walked together in a previous life. When you said that, I was like, yeah,
right.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to meditate on that one. I wonder about that. What our in fact relationship was at that time. Hopefully it was a good one.
yeah. Well, we can go over that if you want to go deeper.
Yeah,
but what I love about the spark between you and I is we're for the underdog. We want people to rise up, and we want people to remember who they are. And maybe it came back from my tactile response. And the reason I went from bullying was because I was about bullying to bodybuilding was because of that very reason. I had a childhood shadowed with that type of stuff. And that's a whole nother story, but it brought me to that. And I talk with JC about this a lot. Whenever I come across him in someone's field through a healing, and I'll be like, so tell me about this, brother. Why is it you went that path of sacrifice, and that was the turning point where you were within a collective of Christian belief systems, sacrificing yourself to become whole, and then return to showing people that you could come back from that. And I felt that sacrifice as a child, because bullying is something that incites me. I have no tolerance for it. That's my personality. It's my personality, and it's okay to have a personality. Don't erase it. But you and I are holding that same torch, and we don't put up with any bullshit from anybody.
Well, it's called righteous anger. Anger is a real valid emotion that has a time and place, and your anger is righteous when the innocent is being violated. So sometimes people are afraid to be angry. They think it's wrong, but no, when it's channeled appropriately, it's 100% called for, 100%. So
I would add to that you can be righteous without the tainting of anger. The only reason I say anger, because it's a delusional state of being sharp, having intention. because once that dissipates, once you deflate, you're going to go, oh, I didn't mean to call you that. I didn't mean to say that. I didn't mean to. You can still hold that passion that you know to be true without the distorted anger. That's all I'm saying. Something to contemplate about and, ruminate with it yourself, because it has a charge. But when you master this stuff, I can show you things where you can be completely angry and transmute that into a high state of consciousness. And it's all alchemical process, instead of it being stuck with a deflation, where that deflation is where you go, oh, I have regret. I shouldn't have said that. I'm passionate, but there's the inverted effects of it, which come from anger, because you get sober real fast. I hate you. I hate you. Well, you're so sure. I know. I don't need to think. I know that I hate you. And that's where there's that little oscillating effect that maybe we could share as a contemplation. But when I show you how quickly you master that, your passion doesn't change. Your righteousness, that righteousness is the path of knowing. And when you follow that, you will be realized. But it doesn't have to come with the deflated inverted effect, because anger is such a commandeering of attention if you're allowing it to be, which your mastery would limit that, which I think is fantastic. But furthermore, you could just take that and just blossom it into a liberation and a regaining of your true self, where you're even more expanded than you could ever be. Just a suggestion. I'm not saying that this is the only way. I'm just saying through my own teaching and mastery, that has been a very clear remedy that works. And at some point, I would love to talk to you more about what it is that you use that remedy for, because it is powerful. You and I are the same. No bullshit.
I love that. We definitely will continue this conversation, and we'll look forward to it.
And I appreciate you. I'm going to put your social sphere and interweb under this podcast. I want people to go out and find you and experience what it is that you offer through this lens. You offer one-on-one sessions, group stuff, books to read, insight. Please share more with the audience.
Oh, thank you. Well, I too have a podcast, Awakening Aphrodite podcast with Amy Fournier. And of course, my website is my name, amyfournier.com. And that's 4 as in the number 4, FOURNIER.com. And I'm really excited too, San, because I finally am putting together an online course called Goddess Rising. It helps women through the 4 stages of womanhood. And we talk about the 4 major archetypes of the feminine. And that has a whole community of women and regular calls. Yeah, it's just, I am going out of my skin to get this out in the world. This has been a long time coming. It's kind of like the culmination of my life's work. I've put together, the child, the warrior, the queen, and the wise woman, and the whole archetype of the female experience. And just super excited to create this container for women to come together and to help walk each other through. And so that's coming very, very soon this year. That should be out. But, this has been such a beautiful gift to me. I'm very, very grateful. I could listen to you talk forever. And I enjoy your podcast too very much. And really, this kind of thing is really what it's all about, right? Like finding each other. And sometimes again, right? Finding each other again in this life is such a beautiful gift. I always am just so grateful to these wonderful experiences. They truly keep me going. So thank you. And thank you to everybody that's with us today.
I want to thank you. And I'm going to ask you one last question, my dear friend. What is your definition of spiritual consciousness?
Oh my goodness. I would say embodying the truth of who you are. And not knowing, embodying it, like you are it, like it is just your being, that you embody who you are. You're not aware, you just are, and that is who you are. That's your consciousness of your spirit.
You had me at hello. That's like, well, and shout out to my boy James Tunney, who's a squire and scholar from Ireland, who's
Yeah.
also a mystical chaser of all things Catholicism, but in the deeper nature of things, I would say that we look at this, and the reason I use spiritual consciousness is right now there is a very concerted effort, and this is where you and I are, we're aligned in everything. But let me just say passionately, this whole transhumanism, AI bullshit, and all the stuff that's coming with that through the lens of nutrition, environment, all the stuff that you're so passionate about, we need to make a concerted effort to rise above it, because if not, we will be consumed as a community, and furthermore, humanity will have an ending.
Well, we're becoming cyborgs. I mean, these injections have, DNA altering properties that are literally changing the human genome. I mean, our species is being changed. Again, uninformed consent, rather. We're not even aware that this is happening. So this needs to stop, because life as we know it is being altered right under our noses.
And that is why you are present, my dear friend, and you are contributing to that incredible cause. And I'm just very grateful for you. So I want to thank you again.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to rekindle our friendship and, move forward from that. And with that, I will thank you. I want to thank the universe for bringing you into my life. I want to thank the audience for sharing their time with us today. And I am your humble servant and seafood Taoist Master, San Qing. And I'll see you on the next one, guys.